Hello, welcome to Alice in Welfareland, adventures written by me, the author, but also about to be read by me, snapshots from the whole book. First, though, let me read what it says on the back, just a bit of the blurb. Warren Row, 1984. Alice falls down a rabbit hole at Warren Row into a nuclear bunker. While some of the quaint characters might suggest the original Lewis Carroll, others sit within spitting image distance of silly celebs, as well as the raunchy boss of education's hard-boiled exams, Humpty Dumpty. First chapter is Riddled Wood. Lying low inside the plain white nun's chamber pot was a thick layer of Epsom salts, sneaked in by a day pupil from Boots the chemist. When heated with night-warm pee, Alice and rebels hoped to overhear the nun's pot bubble over and the nun herself to squeak. Yes, instead of the usual genteel flow of holy water, they visualized a veritable Vesuvius of effervescent froth erupting all over Sister Margaret's immaculate floorboards. Should Alice wait long enough to be discovered as a ringleader, or run into the wood before being discovered? Later. It's you who are lost in my wood, without my permission too, young Alice, not your boyfriend, not even your teachers. They're not curious enough to lose their way. Now, please listen to this, Mr. Owl. All men are immortal. Socrates was also human. Socrates? There was a silence in the wood. Even the crickets stopped chirping. What? Demanded Mr. Owl, like some nuclear scientist finding a dainty dead girl on a slab winking at him. A haiku, exploded Alice. For a moment, Owl thought that Alice had sneezed. But before he could decide not to bless her, she continued, Japanese, you see, a haiku is more generous than logic. It leaves room for one's own contributions. She grinned experimentally. Flogging her ideas, she felt like the Cheshire Cat, uncertain that its 9 lives wouldn't suddenly turn into a cat o' nine tails for her own back. Heads down, you ignorant lot, shout the school teachers above us as they lob at us their bombs marked knowledge. But I won't duck. I say, get knotted. As if being introduced to a new mix of mouse gravy, the owl sagely nodded. Next stop, Humpty Dumpty. For more knowledge, he'll soon whet your girlish appetite, unless, that is, he added salaciously, you wish to fall off his wall, commit kamikaze, and meet up with your ghost boyfriend in your frilly knickers. Only having heard the words wet and girlish appetite, more than her ardour was dampened. Crossing her legs, Alice blurted out the next plea. If kind teachers only assumed that I was wise already, she said, I would not need to become wicked. Then as friends, they would welcome my questions. If truth is all, then surely I must be a large part of it. Such arrogance. After Mr. Dumpty, with his appetite for thick twits beneath him, has spat you out, hissed Owl with greedy intensity, he will leave some tidbits for me to digest. Socrates didn't ever squash his students, defied Alice. So, sir, please, what word, please, should follow the second Socrates? Yours? Yours, girl. You started this one. But you must finish it, Mr. Owl. It's your truth, not mine. Then return to the original formula, insisted Owl, as if settling the argument. Curiouser and curiouser, thought Alice, as Owl ranted on. What a dead logic. What a dead end logic is. What a dead end. There just has to be something better than being told we're always wrong. But what? Hello, again, Chapter 2, Diet of Worms. Now this tract Alice produces and shows to Humpty Dumpty, like Martin Luther. Double glazed as a hard-boiled Easter egg dyed red, Humpty Dumpty was protected by his stupor. Perhaps in there somewhere he was dimly hoping to find liquid enlightenment. Einstein, entranced by a sunbeam, his daydream produced a knowing, a theory of relativity. Imagination is the true reality, writes Paul Twitchell in his book Spiritual Notebook. Not the imagination mortal man thinks about, but true imagination in the other worlds. That is, the ability to re-image what already is. Entranced, advancing pupils can be learning far greater lessons in the private classrooms of their daydreams than earthly classrooms ever provide. Such dreams, anyway, are already shaping all of our tomorrows, as do indeed nuclear nightmares, subscribed to by millions sharing the same thought form. Therein lies the ever-present Cold War and Civil War in the human heart that split the atom in the first place. Fart. By accident or design, it sounded as if Humpty Dumpty's pants had just split. Alice, gulping down some unpolluted air, crossed her legs more tightly and sallied forth. Glue-sniffing, drunkenness and granny bashing are but individuals' poor attempts to break through to more meaningful experiences. And now later. Though the politically unthinkable had, it seemed, already happened, Alice sensed something even more shocking. All her life, she could have sent inner white light as a blessing, instead of visualizing white light as devastating disaster, silencing all skylarks, airbrushing all rainbows, whitewashing, as it were, all prison walls, even Humpty Dumpty's. Thoughts as daydreams, or thoughts as catalysts. Either way, Alice was feeling as if that arid and banal desert above ground had happened because of her long-nursed fears, because of her visionary faculties. Had not every prophesying protester actually fed the thought form of nuclear disasters? Hateful to consider, but maybe such landlocked protesters had mentally hatched its actuality. Indeed, helped the very Jesuitical hell on earth they had tried too hard to resist. If so, what alternatives could have prevented such alleged accidents? Let's help an accident, or nurture a different mindset. The film The China Syndrome had caused right-wing critics to react with scorn, saying that such an eventuality is totally impossible. Alas, that fictitious scenario predated a near-catastrophic nuclear accident at 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania, by only a few days of grace. Snow White lays her gloved hands on invisible dead voters, thousands of them. Through miles of rubble, dust and slurry she wanders, not one cabinet cockroach for company. At last, she returns to her only human companion left. This is the White Queen who, tired out from knocking on the iron door to an underground sanctuary, now sits with her peeling corgi, both very drowsy and downcast. Snow White is also weary and worn, yet undefeated by the ardours of publicly defending the freedoms of the undeniably dead. After all, she'd always claimed that society doesn't exist, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Look, contaminated wastelands, not one working factory left, for mile upon mile. One must ask, whose fault? You promised them the earth. Snow White respectfully. And the sale of cemeteries. You know, survivors who could not speak, I just laid my hand on. I wanted them to know that I was there. Holding her killer handbag, peering through the fog at a compact mirror, where there's a desert, there's always an oasis. She sighs. White Queen also sighs. All the weeping in the world will not bring back your wets now. Nor all the Queen's horses and all the Queen's men. And she sighs, and together they sigh and say, couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. Cold War be blowed.
This lady's not for burning.
In the decontamination chamber, that dangerous stranger convinced those in charge that his police uniform was a cast-off from Oxfam. Unlikely as was this lie, so loving were those below ground that they preferred to give the benefit of doubt to everyone alike. PC therefore had no difficulty in persuading him that it had been issued to him when he joined the homeless before the day disaster struck. Painfully aware of his presence underground, should Alice tell all the survivalists that PC was well armed? No, the sensitives among them would surely know that already, or would they? Such contradictory tensions were battling in her brain, Alice nervous of would-be mind readers which seemed to probe every psychic shadow within the group consciousness. In the whispering gallery, the broody mediums continued to flutter over their new-laid occult eggs, wondering which had psychic salmonella, which were china eggs, and which, if any, fertile, which indeed might hatch out helpful, reliable guidance about their new arrival, the one dressed as a police commissioner. The Blue Dome's internal energy shift had fatally disturbed their fragile sense of safety. Had nukes exploded, or just power stations? Had World War III started? Or worse still, had all the future wars on Earth already been edged into fatality, ended for good, killing the barren Earth itself? Even the best psychics were wobbling on the seesaws of uncertainty. Feeling, this is from the chapter called Enemy Overheads. Feeling like an overdressed untouchable, Alice identified with the deprived-looking wallflowers. Like houseplants left behind on a family holiday, such clumps of kids were wilting there, unattended, not joining in any of the activities. Alice, using the royal we to celebrate their first bout of bilocation, asked themselves this: how can we help those up against the wall? Surely the right to earn is more important than even the right to work, meaning, I suppose, that workfare must be better than blanket welfare. Welfare saves faces, but the eyes are blank and listless. Workfare saves money, but eyes shine with the pride of earning one's own keep, of contributing to the whole community at large. Such ruminations obviously led to concern for the suffering Snow Black and the bishop, so near to death above ground. Save them for the survivalists. A snapshot now from the chapter entitled Time Travelling. Is Humphrey some apprentice shaman, spy, lover boy? Some evil guru, adolescent guru on an ego trip? A salesman for time travel dream services? Why should he be so smitten with PC, that streetwise cop with the phony posh accent? He who commands all young recruits to wear purple, aren't uniforms for fighting wars, for killing others of a different belief? In a state of confusion and misery, trying to stay impervious to the passers-by who offered her cheery help, Alice delayed her next move. Humphrey wouldn't leave her. Or was it she who wouldn't leave him? Either way, Alice felt heavy with the desire to do the right thing for Snow Black and the right thing for others in need. When depressed, she found that giving, rather than asking to get, was the quickest relief for self-imposed sniffles. Don't our enemies need our love most? Trust. She'd again go above. Yes, she'd plant the 9 sacred crystals around Snow White, now Snow Black, hoping that PM and her followers would be healed in time. Many amazing things in this book, I have to say, as a modest author. This chapter is Ants and Apples. Ben requested sharply, Prevent a green holocaust. Consider the laws of nature and recycling. Like the method of trees. Vienna woods. Miriam sang a glissando of gratitude for the lungs of Austria, the lovely forests of her fatherland. Ben pursued her point. First, test the validity of forests through reduction ad absurdum.
You mean like blow 'em up? Said Pip, appalled.
Determined to stay academically alert till the end, Miriam retorted with, the first word of this world was not earth, it was forest. And East Germany's favourite word means forest death. Privatize Vienna woods? How might we feel about this, I ask you? Huh? What? How? How would we feel? Worried, muttered Alice, quick to pick up any accent. 90% of German trees will die, thanks to fallout from the Ruhr. Crops still lives, okay? What Hitler's war did not exterminate, recent accidents kill, acid rain will. Beware, willpower kills. I challenge that, bellowed PC, his moustache as arched as his two eyebrows. He was also rattled by Ben's part-time support given to PC, Ben being a potential rival, of course. The Führer, he had all new forests planted. Hitler, as a vegetarian, loved trees, added PC with forced bravado. So, bah, sniped Miriam like a wounded rattlesnake pierced by a spiked jackboot. Quick-growing spruce, sir. To feed a quick victory, Hitler, believing in pure race, did not permit mixed planting. Mistake, huh? That is why he lost the war. Us Jews also, and our brain powers. Hitler's forests will die already. Just quick convenience conifers. No leaf mold to neutralize acid pine needles. No ants either. Greed always causes disbalances. Defiantly, PC rallied with, the force is with us, us, 3 times. No more force, sir, no more force we need, jeered Miriam. It's more freedom. Harrowing Hades. Humphrey. Ding dong, Eden calling. Knock knock, anyone there? No. Hello, anybody's there? 2, and neither of them for you, piss off. Good. Telepathy in perfect working order, yep. Ding dong, darling. Yes, Humphrey, let's have a ding dong. An astral ding dong. I say you're not what you say you are. I say you've not got golden eyes. I say you're from Mars, not Venus, and afraid of girls. I say that's why you hit me. I say. What did the Venus flytrap say to the blowfly? Dirty jokes. Shows I'm right. How can a fascist warmonger bribe me with love? Tests. Before flying flutes with me over the rainbow mountain. Why? Why do you work with PC, that evil eel? Electricity doesn't care if it shocks, kills, or illuminates us. So why work with shadows, Humphrey, instead of sunbeams? And later, harrowing Hades. Another bleak passage. After 4 attempts to break through false painted doors in the long walls, Alice, on the 5th attempt, found herself circling anti-clockwise and propelled backwards into the passage she had just left. But there was a difference. Despite being baffled by the intricacy of these alleyways and their deceptive shadows, she spotted the shape of a centaur. Eureka! Not so. A legion of centaurs. The flying centaurs, their jagged wings menacing and grotesque, were programmed to attack.
zooming down all the passageways, heading towards her. A pack of winged horse humans much bigger than pigs approached. Getting nearer, their posture became more threatening as Alice started to shrink, her body crouched and cowering. The first centre flicked out a single horn, like a knife, from the centre of its mock-human head. Again and again, circling and lunging from above, circling centaurs aim their horn rapiers at her third eye, trying to gouge it out as if winkle-picking. Ducking and dodging, Alice kept zigzagging as best she might in the narrow confines of the tortuous passageways. Pinned against false doors, her brow under direct threat from the one sharp-pointed horn on every low-flying centre, the doors behind her suddenly opened, spinning into another corridor, hovering at eye level. More centres hovered, all keen for a kill. Then, at the last second, the wall opened where no door was painted in all. In all, what happened 5 times. Alice's yelps for help, fast becoming screams and yells. Every time her body was skimmed by a metallic centaur, she instantly aged 20 years, her hair turning progressively white, her mottled hands becoming warped with arthritis. Was she being turned into a wizard old witch, like some discarded granny? Horrified, Alice saw a flash of a penknife. The hobo was cutting through her frayed lifeline, his toothless gums grinning. But where was Green Tree? Like the last autumn leaf afraid to leave its parent tree, the frail old Alice hung on, her heart pounding in her chest. Then, to prevent the rope from being frayed even further, she was relieved to see the penknife was far less sharp than it looked. Alice, holding out the gourd, offered the tramp the first sip of holy water from the rock-faced font. Instead of being grateful, he recoiled, saying, "When Alexander were a lad, I had a drink of that. Now look at me, too ill to love, too ill to eat, forever withered, ugly, like an old hag." Alice dared herself to lift the water, holy or harmful, to her own mouth. Snatching the gourd before she could drink, the toothless old vagabond, his body odour pungently male, demanded, "Smack me on the lips, old hag, my grizzled lips. Snog me quick, for one last deep, wet kiss." No hesitation. Visualising the fountain of youth, mineral waters trickling down her like liquid silver, letting her heart, not her head, take charge, Alice kissed him on the lips, generously. Opening her withered old eyes, in her arms she found two snapshots now from chapter 12, called The Flying Flute. Military intelligence had informed PC that Scarlet City had already fallen not to the Safs, but to earthquakes. The Safs would therefore not need to take such a city, even if they were planning to kill all the evacuees hiding in what were once safe caves in the 7 surrounding hills. To Jake's men, meanwhile, finding no body, not even a dead one, was more unnerving to the Scars than screaming hordes of savages. It was as if the Safs had let off their own neutron bomb and, rather than surrender, vaporized themselves. In that ghostly mountain emporium, endless lapis lazuli flagstones were not hiding, it seemed, one corpse or enemy threat. Behind the obsolescent doors, in the humid confines of the pyramid, the finery of the main burial chamber was dazzling. Plinths, circular alabaster benches, garlands and ebony ornaments. Brightest of all was the high statue of their golden king god. Could such an epic statue, being hollow, be filled with the enemy? Having so far kept all entrances open in case a retreat was necessary, the Rainbow Warriors were not nervous about being trapped until, that is, Jake warned them that the Saps had successfully developed a technique to make air solid, in which case they could all become encased, like wasps in a shrinking jam jar, their stings bent as boomerangs, rendered useless except against their own bodies. Before such a death, spontaneous combustion might be a better option. Jake, defying PC, revealed their own potential for self-destruction. Perversely, such DIY death threats had the effect of making many of them keener than ever to rout the Saps. Others wanted to make a run for it. They saw Jake as yet another control freak, one of PC's occult hacks. Yet others from Scarlet City interceded with the statue of the Christ-like image of PC. Heavy though it was, they had carried it all the way from the Pontiff's palace. It had to heal all hurts. Instead, Jake daringly suggested that they all enter the golden replica of the king of the Underworld, like the Trojan horse, if indeed it did contain all of their rival hordes in hiding. What then? For long moments, they breathed in silent unison. Eventually, Alice sighed, "I have immortal longings in me," and sighed again. Making pretty curls, she churned soft wisps of his hair on the nape of his damp glowing neck. "Oh, beamish boy, you look like the owl I met, sweet. And all 'cause I lost myself in the wood when I ran away and we met." But had not he the wit to woo her? "You look like my owl in sunlight, though. Not one hiding in shadows now, I'm glad to say. You're here, I'm here, we're here." So, getting as skittish as the young Cleopatra, she posed for Humphrey on a deep piled carpet, inviting him to draw his own conclusions. But his next comment sounded uninviting. "A still life's a contradiction in terms, Alice." Taking the hint, Alice broke her pose and instead danced around him. Aroused somewhat, Humphrey started clapping in time as she repeatedly beat out the words, "Wisdom, wisdom, wings of dove." Reversing roles, Humphrey, fleet of foot like so many plump bodies, danced as Alice beat out the rhythm, she chanting with enticing delight, "Sing with me in lands of love." Laughing, they fell together onto the central tomb, mutual merriment soon warming them, despite the coldness of the marble. "Will we?" asked Alice, tentatively stroking a cheek. "Vril," Humphrey shot her an arrow of anxiety. "I'm more afraid of being stroked than hit. And you owe me one, Alice." "But I only want to, you know, like Kitty my cat, stroke you, hear you purr in my lap. Please?" But before she could open her heart, he rose abruptly. Consulting his watch, Humphrey announced, I'm late for a very important date." "Aren't I it?" she gasped, somewhat flattened. "Where?" "Oxford. Needs re-educating. More homeless than the capital of Bangladesh. Beveridge must be turning in his grave," nodded he emphatically. Alice nodded back. He'd once said his dad used to beat him, yep. So she'd kiss him better. If only he'd let her. But it was easier to cuddle a Christmas pudding before it had been inflamed with brandy, of course. Thanks for being with me still. From the epilogue, a quick snapshot. Seeing him smile, she shot him a volley of questions, all seemingly unrelated to everything that had occurred so far. "Do you think the earth is hollow, like that puffed up pastry there, sir? The astronomer Royal Harry thought so, did he not, sir? How many dimensions has time, and does God think logically?" "I do not think so. And are there 2 huge white rabbit holes, one each at the poles? Impossible, but only before breakfast marmalade. Sometimes I've asked 9 impossible questions before I wake up. Actually, 9 is my favourite number at the moment. What is yours? All. I'm a mathematician. And now, to be sure, the Earth consists of a solid crust, mantle and core. That would seem to be obvious. Any hollow part within it exists only in the imagination. But I've got an amazing one, sir. And so have I, he whispered keenly, daring one step nearer. Then pray careful how you aim it, sir, snapped Alice, as if to some vulgar seaside photographer who had ducked under the black skirt of his cheap camera, both he and it on spindly legs of uncertain balance. Just as abruptly, Alice held up her napkin like a yashmak, her eyes peering over the top brim. Alice said, "I fear explosions and flashes of insight, sir." Her eyelashes fluttered helplessly. Might I ask, is your name Margaret? Today, I'm Alice. Alice Liddell. And I'm ready. On that, she patted the Persian rug, as if it was some magic stallion that was too shy to gallop. Transport me, sir. And now we jump to the appendix. Now this includes the Diet of Worms, or rather the bulk of it, most of it. The tract, like Martin Luther wanted reformation of the church, Alice wants reformation of education. If remember, she addressed Humpty Dumpty. Now, to find the rest of this appendix, if you want to, it's buried underground, somewhere in Welfareland. But there is a riddle, and that riddle can help you find it. And I'm going to read that riddle to you now, in case you feel as though you'd like to go hunting. The riddle. Initially, 2 by 2, find a holy boulevard that drawn farmers traditionally sought. As in an alien's office, collect the next clue. Pass on through to where peaceful friends never fought, and connect a Taurian palindrome lacking naught. So for the complete Diet of Worms, first identify the right area of England. Follow the verses, follow the riddle, solve them, and then hopefully you'll find what you want, a treasure, and there will be a prize. So may I wish you happy hunting and happy reading. And thanks for being with me and Alice in Welfareland. I do thank you.